Space is dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. It's a Friday. World Cup qualifiers last night. We got news coming out of Argentina this morning. All kinds of stuff. Prem Proper at 9:30. Mike Conti at 10 o'clock. Let's kind of lay the table of contents out, if you will, for at least this first hour. In between or around Prem Proper, we will have talk about the U.S. men's national team and their 1-0 win over El Salvador. That's coming in just a second. An update on Ezequiel Barco and River Plate. Videos are out in Argentina of Barco showing up at the River offices for his medical / paperwork. Not sure exactly what's going on, but last night the reporting came out that everything was finalized. Paperwork-wise, everything's agreed to. I don't know what the holdup was for an extra day or two, but everything is in motion for Barco to join River. Same terms as has been discussed. A little bit of a tweak on, I think, the transfer portion of it. That is the option that River will have. But 2-year loan, option to buy 50% of his pass. It's $7 million is what's being reported by Cesar Luis Merlo and others. It's a $14 million evaluation. We talked about it, in terms of the market being different now. It's hard to compare to what he was purchased for. That's slightly less. I've seen reports varying from 13 million euro to 15 million US from that 2018 purchase. Well, it's different times. But that's what we know. That's where things stand right now. Everybody in Argentina, all the River fans are very, very excited about adding Barco. That's where that stands. Maybe an announcement today, maybe not, maybe an announcement next week. I don't know the timelines of that, but Barco, video of him going into the River offices to either fill out paperwork, get medicals, what have you. When we have updates on that, we'll talk about it. I mean, we've talked about this. I think, John and Jarrett and I have all given you kind of our opinions on where things stand, what it means, what could be next, et cetera, et cetera. There's really nothing new to it other than a slight change to the transfer number. Okay. That's it. We'll talk more about it a little bit before the end of the hour. Talk about it with Mike Conti as well. I wanted to save this first part of the show for the U.S. men's national team match last night because I'm sure there's lots of opinions on it. It was a 1-0 win. Thought it was a game where the U.S. was in control of it the whole way, but they didn't finish. First half, he had 8 chances. Jesus Ferreira had one golden chance that he should have put away, tried to use his right foot instead of his left, made it a much more difficult play. El Salvador really didn't threaten much at all, which is to be expected. I mean, this isn't the U.S. controlled the play and, that's a surprise. It's the U.S. did what they should do in controlling the play. They should have put the game away sooner. They should have had a second goal. But they did everything but that, in my opinion. They did everything else but that. The lineup was a little surprising. Thought we might get a little more of an explanation afterwards. I guess maybe the questions weren't really geared that way. They were more geared about last night, which is fine. Miles Robinson was rested. Brooks Lennon wasn't part of the game day roster. That part's not a massive shock. Jarrett, I mean, it felt like a game that you would expect the U.S. to win. They played like the favorite. They won the game. They could have been better, but it's kind of one of those workmanlike World Cup qualifying wins that you take the 3 points, put in your back pocket, and you move on to the next one.
Yeah, it's kind of uneventful, and sometimes you'll take that in CONCACAF.
I'll take that every time, Jarrett, in CONCACAF. Uneventful is a good night in CONCACAF.
Let's go ask Mexico how they feel about eventful nights in CONCACAF. Because for a while there, I thought Tata Martino might not leave the building as the manager of Mexico.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But it's workmanlike. It's kind of boring. It's uneventful, and you'll take the win every time. I would like to have seen another goal or two, just so you're not in that situation where, wow, you're 1-up, you're controlling the game. Let's not have something really dumb happen that leads to the goal completely against the run of play. I would love to have seen a second goal just to ease my nerves. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, for sure. I would have liked to have seen the first goal sooner. I mean, that's maybe more of where I'm at. Is the first half. I think the play merited a goal. They should have found one. Ferreira had the best chance. He should have put that away. They were, I thought, and we were talking about it in the watch along channel on the Discord last night. It's a little hard to quantify and explain. I thought they were too frantic at times on the ball in the final third. They needed a little more calm on the ball, but they also needed in the build-up plays to move the ball faster. So it's finding those times to play fast and finding those times to play slow and be calm. And that's rhythm. And that's tough with a national team in general because you're not playing together on a regular basis. So the rhythm is a little bit harder to find. And it was a struggle to find. You did see some different personnel as well. Aronson started on the bench. Weah got the start. I thought Weah came really good in this one. Ferreira had some really good moments. He had a big miss, but he had some really big moments as well. One miss doesn't mean you stunk for the night. He had the assist, but he needs to be better in that one chance because sometimes this wasn't that game, but sometimes you only get that one chance, and you've got to be clinical in those moments. The U.S. wasn't clinical enough last night. But, John, I don't think they were ever really at risk of not getting the result in the 3 points here either.
No, and I think that when you look at last night and we look back on it, hindsight being what it is, there's a lot of things that you wanted out of last night. You wanted that second goal. You wanted the Ferreira chance to get in the back of the net to give you that jump start that we were talking about early on in the first 15 or 20. You wanted to make sure that you had that early advantage and that the other team was chasing. And it wasn't like a situation like we've been seeing in qualifying where coming into this, if I remember my math correctly, coming into the match last night, 10 of the 12 goals that the U.S. have scored have come in the second half. You wanted to kind of take that doubt out of the way. You wanted to go against type and have that goal that was going to put you on the board early and have the other team chasing and remind them why you were the better side and why they were. You had the two teams in the standings where they were. I mean, the early on, obviously for me, you're looking for that. You're hoping for chemistry, but once again, that rhythm is going to take a while to get there because you only have that truncated amount of time to get together for everybody. But at the end of the night, you've got the one goal. That's what it takes. You get the 3 points. You get out of town. You prepare for Hamilton. So there's obviously a lot of things you can look back, hindsight being what it is. Bottom line, you got 3 points. You're out the door.
Yeah, I'm gonna take issue with one thing you said, and it's something that gets said a lot, and I feel like it's maybe something where we need to rewire our brains a little bit in this conversation. You said that you hope they'd got the earlier goal or the first goal or a second goal to show that they were the dominant team and the favorite. This is where I disagree with sometimes the way we talk about games. And look, you can call it nitpicking, that's fine. They showed it with creating 16 chances in the game and 4 big chances. They showed they were the favorite. They showed that they were the dominant team. The conversion of those chances is an issue, and that's a problem, and that's something that needs to happen. But scorelines decide results. We know that. But in terms of being dominant and playing well, scorelines don't always reflect that either. Doesn't mean that every aspect of the game is 100%, and finishing wasn't there. Look, this has been an issue for the U.S. no matter who's starting up top. It has to be better. 4 big chances created and 1 goal, that's a problem. That's a problem. The big chance measure that Opta uses, it's pretty narrow. There's times where I think it's a big chance and they don't call it a big chance. It's pretty narrow that it's a big chance. And 8 chances created in the first half, 8 chances created in the second, 16 in total. That's a good night at the office. I think the control and the statement of we're the big boys around here and you're not was made. But I think from maybe an outside perspective, it wasn't as strongly felt because of the lack of a second or third goal. I think we have to try to go just a little bit below the surface in terms of evaluating performances because it's not purely goals. If it was, then there's no real work for any of us to talk about games because that's all it is. But we've all seen these games, right? Where a team is outplayed, plays horribly, wins a game on 1 shot or wins a game on an own goal and no shots. And the other team had 25 shots. Did the other team control the game? Yeah, they controlled the game. Did they play well? Yeah, they played well. Did they get the result? No, they didn't. They didn't convert enough. I don't think playing well is solely determined on converting chances. It's a massive factor, probably the biggest factor. But I thought the U.S. played well. They should have gotten more out of this. And that's something that you can't be so wasteful, because the U.S. isn't a team that will play everybody in the world in a dominant fashion and have 16 chances. If it takes 16 chances for you to get one goal, that's a problem. You've got to be more clinical in the final third. They have to figure out what it will take to do that. If it is playing the same trio up top consistently so they build up that rhythm, they build up that chemistry. If it is keep cycling the personnel to find the right combination. I don't know exactly, because we know what Ricardo Pepi has done. We know what he's done for the U.S. It's been good. Has he converted all his chances? No. No forward does, but saying he's converted chances maybe at a little bit lower rate than you would like him to be. Jesus Ferreira last night, same thing, but he created chances, so he contributed. Jesus Ferreira created 4 chances, more than anybody else on the field for the U.S., but he had one glaring miss. And then it gets back to that whole evaluation thing. Was he bad last night? No, not at all. He created 4 chances, but he had one really bad miss. So, where do you rate that? Because it's tough sometimes. I think for the U.S., they did everything they needed to do except make the game more comfortable. Okay, I'll take that. Because I was never really, and I don't know about you, Jarrett, I was never really worried they would lose it. I didn't think they would lose. I didn't think they'd draw. I didn't think they'd concede. But yeah, I would have liked the second goal to where it could have been like, okay, cool. Let's rotate the group a little bit. Okay, cool. Let's get this guy some minutes. Let's get Tyler Adams off. Let's do these things. You couldn't really do that because you didn't get that second goal.
Yeah, and I think that's what I asked for yesterday morning was, go get goals, go put this thing away early enough where you can kind of let your guard down a little bit. Not to say you want to let anyone back in the game, but look, who you're better than. We don't have to pretend. We don't have to play, we don't have to play humble with this. Across the board, you're a better team. Mm-hmm. So go get the goals that you needed to get to, just like I talked about yesterday, the analogy of pitching. Low stress innings, low stress minutes. Just create low stress minutes by going and getting those goals where you're just kind of running through things. You're taking it seriously, but you're not having to, push the needle into the red.
Yeah, and you just weren't able to do that. They didn't get one early. I mean, the starts have to be better, but again, when you get back down to it, they created 8 chances in the first half. They created a great chance there for Ferreira. They should have had a goal at halftime. They should have had one. They didn't. That doesn't take away and say they played poorly. That says they need to convert their chances. And if you do that, then it is a very different game. El Salvador has to open up a little bit more earlier. They're not going to be able to play that way for as long. Things change, and you can rotate people through. Because I think if you get that early one, we're having a completely different conversation. Everything else can stay the same. 16 chances created, 4 big chances, 89% passing, 17 to 21 on the dribble. Won the duels at a very large rate. You can go through all those things, and it's all good. But if you get that Ferreira goal early, and it's 2-0 instead of 1-0, there's a dramatically different feeling coming out of it. It does come down to that to a degree, but it doesn't wipe away what I thought was a good performance that lacked that killer edge in the final third, John.
I think the 2 words that stick to my mind when it comes to this performance were, it might be more than 2, solid and workmanlike. You did your business. And to your point, I know that you look at the end result, just the 1 goal on the board, but those 16 chances, I know that folks don't sit there and they look at the end empirical evidence and not necessarily all of the evidence in the rest of the equation that got you the end result at the end of the night. But I thought it was a solid performance all the way around. I didn't think that the U.S. was threatened defensively when it came to giving up a goal. And once again, you're sitting here and looking at this. That's how you want to start these 3 matches. You want to make sure that you take care of your business. You did it in a very workmanlike manner. I know that there are things that we've talked about that were left on the table when it comes to performance, but you got the performance you needed against a team that you definitely should have beaten, and you did beat. So this is where you are, and you move on to Hamilton.
16 chances created, 4 conceded. It was almost a perfect split. Well, it was a perfect split. 8-8 for the U.S., 2-2 for El Salvador in each half. Need to be better. I mean, I think you got to give credit to El Salvador. They were good. They were organized, well coached by Hugo Perez. They made it difficult at times for the U.S., but not too difficult. Again, 16 chances created, 4 big chances. That says that the U.S. was the better team here by a large margin. But El Salvador fought, and they didn't give up, and they didn't get frustrated. They conceded a goal. They didn't fall apart. That's a credit to what Hugo Perez is building in El Salvador. I thought the referee was really good as well, which is maybe one of the biggest shockers of the night in CONCACAF, is that the referee didn't throw any cards. Look, I don't judge a referee if they're good or bad based off how many fouls they call or how many cards they throw. I just want consistency. And in this game, the ref was consistent. It was 18 fouls to 17. The U.S. committed 1 more. No cards. Okay. You know, he was talking to players. He was warning players, all those things. I mean, go through and see if anybody got out of hand with fouls in terms of fouls committed. You had 2 guys with 3 fouls committed for El Salvador. Chris Richards committed 4. I mean, if you want to talk about yellow cards and persistent infringement, well, Richards would have probably been pretty close to that. So, you know, Aronson and Dest and Zimmerman committed 3. No cards. It was consistent. It was a good refereeing performance. It was just a game, Jarrett, that lacked a lot of drama, which is not always a bad thing when you're trying to qualify for a World Cup.
No, we like I said, ask Mexico how they feel about drama for a World Cup qualifier.
Because, they had it.
I mean, buddy, they had it in spades. It was amazing.
Yeah, if you haven't seen
Canada
the Mexico situation, Canada didn't have it. Canada handled their business down in Honduras, which is a credit to them, because there's always that question until they prove it otherwise, that can they handle the big moments? Canada showed that they could against the last place team in Honduras, but they went on the road and won that game. Great goal from Jonathan David. Incredible ball from Liam Fraser. I'm still shocked that Toronto let Liam Fraser get away. But Mexico didn't play well. They were missing a whole bunch of people. They've had a whole bunch of issues with injuries and guys testing positive for COVID. Guys didn't make the trip. Guys were pulled out at the last minute. But they conceded after a red card late in the first half, which was a little bit of a harsh call. But, you know, we've seen this call where a player is clearing a ball or in a motion and follows through and catches somebody. We've had this conversation about red cards called in the Premier League about it. We've seen it in leagues all over the world. It's harsh. I think it's really harsh, because the question, which is a valid one, is what's the player supposed to do in the situation? In this one, Damian Lowe of Inter Miami clears the ball and comes down on Andres Guardado's ankle and like stands on it. I mean, it was a lot of studs on his ankle, standing on it.
A lot to unpack in that moment at full speed.
Yeah, like what else can he do? I don't know. But again, consistently, we've seen that called a red.
Yeah.
You know, I always feel like it's harsh, but at least consistently worldwide, that has been called. So Jamaica's down to 10. They get a goal off a set piece that Mexico struggles to clear. They go up 1-0. And they just didn't have enough to see the thing out. Mexico got 1, and Jamaica fell apart. And they got a second one really fast. And Mexico went from, you know, around 8:30 or so last night to probably asking for CVs from managers, or at least thinking about what that's going to look like, to, oh, everything's fine. Okay, we're cool. It's good. That was unexpected. And it's how these topsy-turvy things can go. And when you get down to it, it's easier to have the situations that the U.S. had, where it is a little boring, a little simple, complete control, get the win, pack up your 3 points, and you move on. Panama would have liked to have had that. They went on the road to Costa Rica and they lost. So, which is a good thing for the U.S. because it separates 1, 2, and 3 from the playoff spot. The U.S. right now is 4 points clear of the playoff spot. Costa Rica is back in play for the playoff spot. They're 2 points behind Panama. Where things stand right now, Canada's number 1 on 19 points, U.S. on 18, Mexico on 17, Panama in the playoff spot on 14, Costa Rica on 12, Jamaica 7, El Salvador 6, Honduras 3. I think with 5 games to play, I think Jamaica and El Salvador are out of it for the playoff spot. Costa Rica still has that opportunity. And we go to the games on Sunday with Canada hosting the U.S., 1-2. Mexico hosting Costa Rica in front of about 2,000 fans is the number it's going to be. Testing out new procedures and such. That's one way to get a few people in the building after being banned from having people in the building. Panama has to rebound hosting Jamaica. That should be a win for Panama, I would think. And Honduras hosts El Salvador. But Mexico, Costa Rica is at 6. Canada, U.S. is at 3:05. Panama, Jamaica at 6:05. Honduras and El Salvador at 7:05. Quickly, before we get into Prem and Proper, let me start with you, Jarrett. Who do you think is in the playoff spot by the time we get through Sunday night?
I'm half tempted to say Panama, just because Costa Rica is going to. I wonder how they'll do against Mexico, especially now that Mexico might have a little pep in their step after what happened last night.
Yeah.
I'm tempted to say Panama.
I think so too. I'm not 100% there because I want to see how Panama bounces back after a tough night at the office last night. But John, are you thinking Panama takes care of Jamaica and Costa Rica does not get 3 in Mexico?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking right now. I'm still looking at nothing changing after the weekend as we head into the third match in this window.
Yeah, well, what could change, Panama won't be able, unless things get really weird, to flip the goal differential. If they blow out Jamaica, I guess it's possible. They won't be able to flip that to pass Mexico if they were not to win. But if there is not a winner in Canada and in U.S., if one team wins or there's a draw there, then Panama can tighten things back up with that 4th spot in play. So good win last night, good 3 points. You got a little bit of separation, but that separation might be gone by the time we get to Sunday night. Jarrett, you're going to hang out and come back to close out our number 1 after we talk a little bit of England. So, Jarrett, we'll see you in a bit.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, Jarrett. All right, let's bring Niall in. And Niall, I don't have the fancy intro for you yet because we need to figure out how this is going to go. I have some extra music that I could play, I think. That one's like drums and CONCACAF. That's not going to work for Prem and Proper. I don't really know what this one is, so cross your fingers. That'll work.
Okay.
Prem and Proper with contributor Niall.
Yes. Ta-da. Now, Niall, we've got some things that we're going to talk about. I know that there's some transactions that are talking about, and it'll be a bit of a Q&A this time, a little bit of a back and forth. And we've got FA Cup for folks that are really diehards that want to keep an eye on the Premier League teams this weekend. And I think it's the round of 32, and there's some fun teams that we've been talking about in the past. But let's start the conversation off today. And I want to go back and forth with you about someone who's going to be leaving New England and heading toward Arsenal. It's Matt Turner. And just let's talk about the numbers here real quick. What do you think about the numbers that are being tossed around with this deal with Matt Turner heading to Arsenal? The numbers specifically, what do you think?
I think that's an incredibly a good deal for a keeper of his status. 7 million euros plus 3 million in bonuses. I think New England will also probably retain a bit of his sell on. So ultimately, I think it's a very good deal for New England and also for, a goalkeeper. And I think, it's a big deal in MLS for a goalkeeper like Matt Turner to be heading to a Premier League side in Arsenal.
So I know that Bernd Leno has been the force of the conversation here. He has wanted out, and it looks like he might be heading to Newcastle. And I know that it was the notion of Leno not happy behind Aaron Ramsdale. Let me ask you this. If he goes to Newcastle, what do you think Bernd Leno will be at Newcastle?
I think Bernd Leno will be a crucial player for Newcastle. I mean, he is a talented keeper. He obviously is below Aaron Ramsdale in the pecking order because, Aaron Ramsdale has sort of surpassed him there. But I think he'll be a good player for Newcastle. And I think that, he'll just be he's a good shot stopper, and I think Newcastle will be a good club for him.
So then let me ask you this. The third question when it comes to Matt Turner, what do you think this says on the global stage where you have two of the four keepers that were supposed to be in camp, Zach Steffen with Manchester City, and now Matt Turner heading to Arsenal at some point? What do you think this says about keepers from America on the global stage with two of the four now being in the Premier League, or at least heading to the Premier League, one already there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it says a lot about the progression, especially with just American players being eyed by European clubs. I feel like now a lot of European clubs are coming more to MLS to look at potential players, and I think there's a lot more of a sort of admiration for the hard work with these American players that come with. I know, like in the Bundesliga especially, that they're very keen on these having American players because of their athleticism. Apparently, I think that's something that Derek Ray talked about a lot. So,
player number 2 that you had on your list this morning is Bruno Guimaraes, and it is seemingly a race at some points, but now it looks like it's a medical. And since we're talking about Newcastle this morning, let's continue to talk about Newcastle. Guimaraes now apparently $40 million heading to Newcastle. When it comes to Bruno heading to Newcastle, what do you think about this particular pickup?
I think this is a really good pickup for Newcastle. This is, I think, a signing that really matches what their reputation should be when it comes to signing players. Would be, I feel like, a big coup for Newcastle because of the interest that, Bruno has received. He has received interest from clubs such as Arsenal, who I think also wanted him, but now it looks like Newcastle will be getting him. And, he's a very talented player. He's not just a player that would help, Newcastle in the short term as they're battling against relegation, but also a long term. He has a very large skill set. He's a great passer of the ball. He has the ability to turn or distribute. He's great at finding space. He works hard off the ball as well. He has great awareness. And he has like a great defensive discipline as well. The only concern is his finishing. He tends to arrive late in the box, but really that shouldn't be that much of a worry, with other players probably going to be relied more heavily on that. And like I said, this would be, I feel like, Newcastle's biggest signing so far. And one that I think would certainly do well for them and certainly should, mark the start of a new era with Newcastle.
And definitely having to also probably overpay to bring folks in that are a part of a relegation scrap. Defensive midfielder, for those not familiar, currently at Lyon, moved there in January of 2020, played 295 minutes in their run to the Champions League semis as they beat Juve and then Man City before being knocked out by Bayern Munich in the Final Four. Just some numbers when it comes to Bruno. Right now, league ranking, number 1 in final third completed passes, number 1 in passes completed in the opposing half, and that's double the number of final third completed. Top 10, he's number 2 in fouls won, 3 in through passes completed, 4th in touches, 11th in chances created. So that's going to be interesting to see if Bruno crosses the finish line when it comes to Newcastle. Now, let me ask you about Newcastle in general, since we have a couple days left here in the window. How many guys do you think Newcastle is going to bring in? I'll let you tie it down to a number. How many guys do you think Newcastle brings in this window, and how many do you think they overpay for on the common market?
Oh, so I think after Bruno, I legitimately think that there arguably is not much time left for Newcastle to make a signing. So I could arguably see them making maybe one more signing, perhaps. And I feel like with that one signing, it'll probably be overpaid as well. I don't know. I just feel like Newcastle, honestly, they haven't been as proactive as pretty much that was expected from them, especially with what reportedly they wanted. They wanted to sign a lot of key players to fill up positions, such as a striker. Yes, they signed Chris Wood, but is that the best signing for them realistically? And they're also wanted to upgrade their defense a lot. They've been still linked with it all seems like the Sevilla defender Diego Carlos. I don't know. Looks like he's uncertain about going to Newcastle now. So it's like it would be disappointing for Newcastle to not sign a defender, as that's a place where I feel like they could really improve. So yeah, I feel like Bruno is probably going to be maybe the last signing for Newcastle this window. I mean, there could be probably another player on the cards for them, but ultimately, I think this is the last one.
And we'll have a little bit more news when it comes to Prem Proper as we get closer and closer to the deadline. One of the other things that we kind of want to
chime in here.
Okay, chime in away.
There's one. I'm going to take issue with you a little bit, Niall, in saying that Newcastle hasn't been proactive. I think they've tried to get deals done. They haven't been able to conclude them, but they've been active.
Yeah.
I think their strategy has been a mess, and there was a piece about kind of how things have gone this last week with the team training in Saudi Arabia and meetings, and you've got a core of people in Riyadh trying to plan this stuff out. Then you've got some folks in Europe trying to close out deals, and it feels very scattered. Like that part, I think is incorrect. It just hasn't been set up well, but they are, according to the Telegraph, reportedly closing in on not just Bruno Guimaraes, but Eddie Nketiah and Dan Burn. Those are supposed to get done pretty quick, according to the Telegraph. And I'm out.
So there you go. It looks like they're trying to grab folks from Brighton to help things out as well. But it will be interesting. Newcastle, for me, is going to be one of the more interesting test cases as we get toward the end of the transfer window here. And Big Ben will chime. And by the way, for those of you that have Peacock, NBCSN used to do the signing day element from Sky and run that live on the network. That's going to be on Peacock for those of you that can get Peacock on transfer deadline day to hear the Big Ben chime. All right, now midweek next week, next activity for Premier League sides is the FA Cup. We're in the round of 32, and I know that you wanted to kind of take a peek at this as well. A lot of the matchups right now are teams that are not Premier League sides going up against Premier League sides, but there are a couple. And let me ask you this. With Everton and Brentford, we have Everton and Brentford, and double check me here. Everton, Brentford, Wolves and Norwich, Tottenham and Brighton. Of those three matchups, which one do you think the underdog has the best chance of upsetting the favorite? Everton right now is at a plus 117. This is juice box numbers. Everton's at a plus 117. Brentford's at a plus 238. Wolves at a minus 161 at the Molineux. Norwich is a plus 450. Tottenham minus 111. Brighton's plus 300. Which one of those teams do you think could fall in an upset?
I think Everton could potentially fall in an upset. I think there's still a lot that needs to be, improved. And, they still recently have let go of Rafa Benitez. They played okay against Aston Villa, but it wasn't enough. I think, I feel like there's still a much of sort of cloudiness around, the players maybe still feeling a bit affected by, what's been going on with Rafa Benitez. So I think maybe that, because, I think Brentford could cause an upset with, the lot happening to Everton recently. So.
Now, since you mentioned Everton, it looks like they're holding final talks with Vitor Pereira, Frank Lampard, Duncan Ferguson. Wayne Rooney revealed that he turned down an approach to hold talks with Everton about the vacant managerial position. Who do you think gets it? Who do you think should get it when it comes to Everton and the managerial position?
I think who gets it? I mean, apparently with the Vitor Pereira thing, Everton, I don't think we're too happy about him, I think, sort of revealing the talks are made between them. I think Wayne Rooney has also said that his agent did talk with Everton, but that he's fully focused on with Derby right now. I feel like maybe Frank Lampard could be a manager that I think Everton could pick up. It's been a while since he's been into coaching, and I think maybe this would be an interesting project for him. Realistically, though, the person that I want to see that's not on the list is Paulo Fonseca. I've said this multiple times, but he's somebody that I think would do a lot to help rebuild this club. So, yeah.
All right, time to wrap up with questions, and thanks to everybody on the Discord that send the questions in this time every single week. El Mataflow with his question: how can we destroy Brighton and Hove Albion from afar? I liked your answer here. What'd you tell him?
Perhaps by just not having talented South Americans come to them, perhaps.
There you go. Ricky Ricardo, where do you expect Villa to finish with all the signings?
I honestly expect them to probably finish in 8th or 9th with these signings. It's been a massive testament to what, Steve Gerrard has done with Villa, and I've been really impressed with what they have done this window, and it really, for me, expresses an ambitious intent. So for me, I could see them going a lot further up in the table.
Jason Nix asked, has Norwich ever had 2 consecutive wins after a manager's been sacked?
I don't know, probably not, but it probably says a lot about the level of the club. It's really hard sometimes with these relegation teams to find and create stability. So I wouldn't be surprised if that is the case.
Turner Kirby, who's the next Big Six manager outside of Ralph Rangnick to get sacked? This was an interesting answer, I thought, from you.
This is a controversial answer probably, but Thomas Tuchel, he had a great start with Chelsea, as he brought the club to a top 4 finish, and after troubles with Lampard and winning the Champions League. However, this season things have been difficult. They started the season really on a high, and a lot of people were thinking, oh, could they be Premier League contenders? But now they are seemingly out of the title race, and with the money spent on players such as Lukaku, the expectation for Chelsea coming in was to be title contenders. However, these players are, struggling a bit, such as Romelu Lukaku. And recent reports have suggested that there is discontent between Chelsea players and Tuchel. The players are apparently not happy about how they're being used or treated, and the situation has apparently escalated to the point that players are considering about moving away from Chelsea. And the players have apparently lost confidence due to constant criticism they get from Tuchel. And we all know how impatient this Chelsea board is, so I think, it may not happen this season, probably next season, but maybe next season there could be a lot more smoke coming on with Chelsea, and I think it'll be interesting to watch.
2 more questions, and Turner asks you to power rank the remaining Champions League teams from England. What'd you say?
Okay, so I would say City is first, Liverpool second, Chelsea third, and United fourth.
All right, last question comes from Jason Nix again. How long will Christian Pulisic remain at Chelsea, and where could he go to maximize his talent, sir? What'd you think?
Okay. The frustration with him at Chelsea is clearly evident with comments he has made. And in the past couple of days, he states that he's not being played at his best position. But, at this point, I think he just needs to, continue to fight for a spot. He needs to make sure that he takes any opportunity he may get well. And, and I think at that moment, he should continue to stay at Chelsea and try to battle for a spot. He's also been, for me, a bit inconsistent at times. And, a lot of times he's had injury troubles. So I feel like maybe a part of that is also that. But for me, I think he just needs to continue battling out for a spot.
All right, Jason. So what do you think? I'll ask you this question from Jason Nix as well about Christian Pulisic. How long do you think he remains at Chelsea, and where could he go to maximize his talent? What do you think?
Wherever he's going to be a regular starter is where he can go to maximize his talent. He just has to play. I mean, you see, I think when he is in this stop-start, sometimes getting minutes, sometimes not, sometimes playing as a wing back, sometimes not. It's hard to be at your best. So, look, you knew this going in, and this is the dance that U.S. men's national team players are in. And they've been in this for a while, but at a different level. Before it was, okay, go to Europe because that's where you should go. But you got to make sure you go to the right club where you're going to play. Well, now U.S. players are going to higher level clubs, which is a great thing. I mean, the huge transfer fee for Pulisic, I think, opened up a lot of people's eyes to, hey, wait a minute, his teammates on the national team might be pretty good. Maybe we should go look at them too. But when you go to these bigger clubs, there's more competition for spots. And Pulisic hasn't been able to nail that down at Chelsea. And look, I mean, I understand his frustration, but look at who he's competing with. Look at who else is being left out. It's not like Christian Pulisic is failing anybody by not getting on the field consistently for Chelsea. There's a ton of competition for spots. Kai Havertz isn't playing consistently. Timo Werner's not playing consistently. These are big names too. So, he's got to go where he can play the most and figuring out where that level is. Maybe it's not a Chelsea. Maybe it's just a step below that. Maybe it's a club where he would be first choice, but those clubs aren't going to pay the transfer fees that Chelsea paid, and you're back to this dance that is really difficult. Not everybody can have what Weston McKennie has had. And I think where we talk about Pulisic and well, you can't go to these clubs because U.S. players aren't good enough or whatever. Well, Weston McKennie's in one of the biggest clubs in the world too. I mean, you just heard Dusan Vlahovic talk about, Juventus is Juventus. His agent's like, that's why he turned down Arsenal and Tottenham, because Juve is Juve. Well, Weston McKennie's there and they can't push him out. Because why? Because he has played his ass off and he's earned the time. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to. Because for these clubs, like, yes, there's the talk about marketing and promotions and getting a U.S. player unlocks the U.S. market and all this kind of stuff. All that's true. It's part of it. It factors into it. But ultimately, these managers are going to play guys who are going to help them win to keep their jobs. Because, I mean, you just talked about Tommy Tuchel being potentially, on the chopping block. Yeah, because that's the life at Chelsea. He's not going to play somebody that's not going to help him win. And he's not going to leave somebody on the bench that he thinks can help him win. So that's the world that you're in when you get to that level of club. You've got to earn it. And the higher up you go, the more competition you have to earn that time. Maybe for Pulisic, and we talked about this coming into the season, maybe for him, the best thing to do is to force a loan somewhere where he is playing consistently in a World Cup year. I don't think he's going to do that before this window's over. And then you get into the summer window, and that's the last run up to the World Cup. Where is he going to be to start next season? I don't think he's going to be at Chelsea.
No, I think I'm right there with you. I think that you've got to go someplace where you can play, and all he has to do is look at his teammates. And Niall, you sit there and look at your teammates; they're getting quality playing time with a lot of heavy, with a lot of heavy duty places. But for someone with Pulisic's talent, find a place where you can go play. Find a place where you can make an impact.
Yeah, I agree. For me, he needs to be playing at a consistent level. He has the talent to be playing for any team, and he just needs to be playing at a team where he can be a regular. So
yeah, maybe it's not at that top with a Champions League winner. I mean, maybe it is a level just below that. That's okay. That's still a great career. And I'm just looking at the table. If Christian Pulisic was at West Ham, for example, I'm not saying he fits into that team, but if he's at a club of that level, he's probably playing more. He's having a huge impact. Okay. Christian Pulisic to Arsenal. I mean, Chelsea's not going to do that deal right now, but those kinds of moves, maybe that's where you need to be and find it, whether it's in England or somewhere else, but find that. And that's going to be down to his agent. And ultimately, and I get the frustration that he has because he has performed well at times and hasn't gotten a little bit more time. I get that frustration. But Tuchel's not going to leave him out if he thinks he's going to help him win games. The performances have to be there to earn the time. The work in the training pitch has to be there consistently. Weston McKennie has shown that after the troubles that he's had with dumb mistakes off the field. He has fought his way back into playing consistently, and they can't get him out of that team. So Pulisic's got to do the same thing. He's there. He's got to fight for it instead of, I mean, he's not griping. He was asked about it. I don't want it to come off that way, but he's asked about it. He talks about it. Okay, now funnel that into your performances and earn the time at Chelsea, because if he's the best player, he's going to play. That's what it comes down to for me.
No doubt.
Thanks, Niall.
Thanks, Ez.
Have a good weekend. I know it'll be, well, never mind. All right. Niall's very sad because there's no Prem this weekend, but that's okay. We'll get Jarrett back in for about 10 minutes. What's up, Jarrett? You still with us? Are you alive?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. That's cool. Did you happen to go back and look at the ridiculousness that was on display in Ecuador yesterday?
You mean the 2 times that Brazil's keeper should have been sent off and wasn't?
Yeah, well, that's just part of it. the game was massively intoxicated in the first 30 minutes, where you got a chance that Enter Valencia somehow misses from the six that I just don't understand it. Then Casemiro scores for Brazil in the 6th minute. Then Ecuador's goalkeeper tries to decapitate a Brazilian forward. Easy red card. It's like, well, he's trying to play the ball there. No, it studs up. Oh, yeah, he's got marks on his neck like a vampire attacked him. Yeah, that's a red card. Okay. Yeah. Then Brazil ups the ante with a red card of their own when you see a player trying to punt a player in the air for Ecuador in a sensitive area with his thigh/knee or shin going between the legs of the Ecuador player who was in the air. That's going to be a red. So then it's 10v10. Then there's a red card shown to Alisson for coming. It's a little bit different than the Ecuador one because he is, and this is where we go back to that situation in Jamaica. He has cleared the ball. His boot is in a very high position, and it's coming down, and he connects with the Ecuador player's head. People will argue, well, what's he supposed to do? How's he supposed to land? Everybody said that should have been a red. I agree. It should have been a red because it was reckless the way he approached the ball to begin with. It wasn't. VAR checks it. They come back. They say, no, you're not sent off. It's just a yellow. Then Ecuador equalizes in the 75th minute after. Look, if you're looking for, and I am not saying this just because Modaflow's watching, if you're looking for a neutral team to watch, Ecuador's your team because it is just wave after wave after
Jackson
wave
mail,
after
Modaflow.
wave.
Yeah,
exactly. No, it's not. It's not. There might be some Alfajores down the road, but we'll see. Wave after wave after wave. It's a fun team to watch. Plata was brilliant yesterday. They get the goal from Torres, the center back from Santos Laguna, on a set piece in the 75th. There was a penalty that was called back with VAR. VAR was very busy. The Colombian referee, Wilmer Roldan. Now, if you go look at the table in South America, you might notice where Ecuador is, where Colombia is, maybe what Colombia kind of needs to happen. Why do you book a Colombian referee in this game, CONMEBOL? I'm just asking. No black helicopters, no nothing. They're not in it. I'm just asking a question. But Wilmer Roldan, I'm just asking. Wilmer Roldan and his VAR.
Positive.
His VAR was one of the busiest men in the world yesterday because he downgraded a red to a yellow first time in the first half. I haven't even gotten to the other one yet. He took a penalty away that we talk about VARs not re-refereeing situations. This is the classic situation of a play being re-refereed. The referee sees it the whole way. He's 5 yards away from it, and he calls a penalty and then gets talked out of it with the video. It's a judgment call. Like, it's how much you want to say the Brazilian player clipped the Ecuador player in the box. I thought he clipped him enough to call the penalty in the first place. I didn't see anything on the replay to say, like, no, you can't call the penalty. That's re-refereeing. Not a fan of that. They take the penalty away. Well, then another penalty is given and a red card to Alisson, who this time I think they did get it right in stoppage time because Alisson comes out. It's a ball that the goalkeeper has to try to play. He goes for the punch. He gets the ball. He does connect with the Ecuador player who was coming through, but he'd already won the ball. I'm okay with that one not being called, but we do think, and Alisson said this, and I've seen media reports say it, I'm going to back it. It's probably the first time in soccer history that a player has been sent off twice and rescued twice by the VAR.
Yeah.
The second one I think was correct. Insane game. And it drives you insane if you're Ecuador because they had a penalty taken away. They had a stupid goalkeeper mistake on their end. They could have had another penalty. They could have had a red card to the goalkeeper. It should have been 10v9 for like 60 minutes. But the point is really, really valuable. And we talked about that coming in. If they got anything out of this game, they're in great shape. And they are. Well, it's still very complicated in South America, even after this game, because you've got Uruguay back in the mix. Luis Suarez with a goal. They win in Diego Alonso's debut game with Uruguay. They go to Paraguay and win. Guillermo Barros Escoloto, His debut for Paraguay didn't go so well. Uruguay right now, with 2 games left to play in this round, are in an automatic qualification spot after they had lost 4 in a row. So they're in 4th right now on 19. Brazil and Argentina have a game in hand, and they're probably never going to play it because it's the game that the guy from the health authority walks out in the field with a gun to make sure they don't start it. Yeah, that happened.
Best.
That happened. It was insane.
I said it was the best.
Oh, no.
The question that it happened. I just said it was the best.
I know. There's probably a lot more to that we don't know that happened. But it happened. Insanity. Ecuador is solidly in 3rd with 24 points. Uruguay's in 4th with 19. Colombia has a game in hand today where they host Peru. They're on 17. If they win, they go to 20. Peru is also on 17. They play in Barranquilla. They could go to 20 with a win. If that's a draw, Ecuador's very happy. Chile lost yesterday to Argentina in Chile. Great goal from Angel Di Maria to open things up. Lautaro Martinez with the winner there. Brereton Diaz with a goal. Great goal for Chile. But Chile losing that puts them in a bad spot. They're on 16. Bolivia plays today. They're the other team to watch. They're at Venezuela. They're on 15. Venezuela's in last with 7. If Bolivia gets a win, you got to focus on Bolivia potentially getting into this mix, which would be insanity. But Colombia-Peru today is a massive game now because of Uruguay's win. That's at 4 o'clock. It's on Fubo TV. Jarrett, for all the talk about, 3 points being good, 3 points being bad, good 3, bad 3, whatever, CONMEBOL always shows us how insane World Cup qualifying can be.
CONMEBOL is that place that we talk about, hey, man, what if we just mixed up the federations one day and had UEFA teams go play CONCACAF? No, let's send them to CONMEBOL. That's where it's at. Can you imagine if the French were on the field and someone came out with a gun from the health department? You imagine what the Belgians would do if a keeper got sent off twice and brought back on?
Yeah, that would.
Could you imagine sending the Germans to La Paz?
No. They don't have altitudes like that in Europe, so no, that'd be crazy.
Unless you're playing up literally on top of the Swiss mountains. Like up where Hannibal took the elephants.
There's that. I'm going to go ahead and bring Mike Conti into the show. He's with us a little early. What's up, Mike?
Hey, yeah, I've always wondered why Bolivia does not have a better home field advantage.
No, they have a good one. They just are they've generally really bad on the road. So
well, but that's the other thing I wonder. Okay, if they're used to playing at altitude, if they go down to sea level, they should feel like their lungs have doubled in size, right?
Yeah, they're just not very good generally. The talent level is a big gap. Yeah. But this group is probably their best since '94, where they qualified. That's the only time they qualified. They've got a chance to play their way into this mix. I don't know if you saw it yesterday, Mike, this Ecuador-Brazil game that had the goalkeeper for Brazil was sent off twice, but VAR rescued him twice.
Okay.
You had VAR get involved those 2 times. They took a penalty away from Ecuador. They agreed with 2 different red cards. So VAR, I think, was involved 5 times in this match. And it ended up 1-1 and finished 10-10. You would have lost your mind. I would have lost my mind calling it.
Help me out. There are very few instances outside of penalty encroachment where VAR is going to get involved in the goalkeeper. Was it serious foul play? Was he handling outside his area? What happened?
Serious foul play. You had the first one where Ecuador's keeper was sent off in the 10th minute for a studs up challenge. And this was handled completely dead on because it was right outside the box. So it's outside, so it's not a penalty. He is trying to play the ball. He completely misses the bouncing ball and goes studs up into the Brazilian forward's neck. That's a red. It's a red and a free kick. If it had been in the box, it probably would have been a penalty and a yellow, although it could have been seen as a straight red in that situation. That would have been the judgment call, but it's outside. The Brazilian keeper was outside the 18 as well. He goes up for a high ball, clears it, and as his boots coming down, connects with an Ecuador player's head. That is the red card initially and downgraded to a yellow.
Okay.
And then the other one was inside the 18 in stoppage time of the second half, where he comes out to punch a ball, and initially a red and a penalty was given because they thought he didn't get the ball. He punched the Ecuador player's head. The VAR got that one right. He got the ball first, and in the same motion, he's going forward with his fists. He does connect with the Ecuador player who's charging in, but the goalkeeper has to play that ball. So that was correct.
It was 10v10 when it ended?
10v10 for 60, or no, more than that, about 75 minutes in total.
Was Chris Penzo the referee?
No, it was just a crazy game. Like,
it was one of the VARs for Costa Rica, Panama, I believe.
Yeah. He's a good VAR. I actually like him as a VAR.
He's a good VAR.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just insanity. Finished 1-1, but it might book Ecuador's ticket to the World Cup.
Well, I mean, that's World Cup qualifying in South America, right? I mean, there always something zany and wacky is going to happen. I'm glad that for the most part, the zany, wacky stuff did not affect the U.S. men's national team last night. Yeah. I know there was some zany, wacky stuff that happened elsewhere in the Confederation last night, but yeah, that would have been fun to watch. A match with a lot of chaos. In other words, CONMEBOL after dark. That could have been a lot of fun.
Definitely. Jarrett left. I was gonna actually say goodbye to Jarrett, but geez.
He really had to go.
I guess.
And it's very ethereal sort. He just kind of drifts in and out, you know.
Sometimes. I didn't even get to play your intro, Mike. There we go. I feel better.
I was going to ask if he got his intro every single time.
Yes, of course.
Man, I mean, the rest of the segment is such a letdown after that intro, really.
We try. While we were talking about the craziness in Ecuador and Brazil, Ezequiel Barco was speaking outside of the offices at River. It was on TIC. Quotes are starting to emerge from it. Just a couple things as I'm seeing them and pulling them up. He said, when Gallardo called me, I didn't hesitate, which is common. I mean, Marcelo Gallardo is one of the most respected managers and honestly a legend of the game in Argentina. He talked about how he's really looking forward to playing with Julian Alvarez. Again, they've played together in the Argentine youth national teams. They're good friends, as Barco said. They're looking forward to teaming up. Looks like there might be a couple more quotes here. Very grateful to Independiente. They gave me the opportunity to play in the first division. I guess he got a chance to see River train. He just said it's a pleasure to be with a group of very good players. There has been some talk over the last couple of days as things were getting sorted out that maybe Flamengo and Internacional made final approaches to try to get a deal done. Independiente had reportedly put in a call or tried to get something done, but they have no money to work with. But he had his heart set on River after talking to Gallardo. That seems to be the biggest takeaway. And the reports last night were that everything paperwork-wise has been agreed to and done, and he did his medical this morning at River and could have an announcement pretty soon.
Well, I think we all knew this day was coming, right? And again, when you talk about maybe Flamengo and Internacional getting back in at the last minute, here's a situation where I think everything went well for the player. The player ends up at the best possible destination that was on the table. And I think Barco is going to go down there and flourish. And honestly, as Atlanta United supporters, now we have to hope he does. Because if the terms have been reported correctly, Atlanta United could stand to make some additional money on this if Barco's sale price goes higher in the next couple of years. I think it's a good piece of business for the club. It's not quite the way I think we envisioned Barco's departure looking 2 years ago, like say in May or June of 2019 after the U20 World Cup before the pandemic hit. I think we envisioned that this day would look maybe a little bit different than what it turned out to be. But Atlanta United still has the potential to at least break even on this, the potential. And Barco goes to a place that I think he'll flourish at. I think it'll put him on the radar for some senior national team call-ups down there.
That's something he said. He said River can be a springboard to the national team for him.
Yeah, I think it's for the national team, let's be honest, I think River is a more likely springboard to that than Atlanta. Not that Atlanta isn't, but it's just different when you're playing in the domestic league. And the visibility down there it's just at a different level for the domestic league. So I'm happy for Ezequiel. This is a bittersweet day because I think Ezequiel was really starting to hit his stride here in Atlanta. If there was a way where it could have worked out, where Ezequiel could have played here another year, I think he could have absolutely been one of the preseason favorites to be the most valuable player of this league, or certainly a best 11 player. So it's a little bit bittersweet that we're not going to see that. But I wish him nothing but the best. He won 3 trophies here, and I think he was really the on-field catalyst for Atlanta United's massive turnaround in the second half of last season. The level at which he was playing last August, what he should have been MLS Player of the Month. I still think it's really unfortunate that he wasn't. He should have been MLS Player of the Month in August. I think he deserved Best 11 consideration. I don't know how close he got to that. I thought he deserved Young Player of the Year consideration. I don't know how close he got to that. So Barco leaves Atlanta United playing the best soccer I think he's playing in his life. It's a benefit to River, and hopefully, in turn, Atlanta United, by, I don't want to say kicking the can down the road, but maybe deferring the potential for him to be sold on to Europe a few years from now when the market recovers, I think positions Atlanta United very well to make a little bit more money on this.
Yeah. I'm gonna get a soapbox out for just a second. I apologize. But when the rumors started to go all the way back to late 2017 about Ezequiel Barco, I had heard the name. I was following the Argentine game decently at that point. It wasn't quite as accessible as it is now. And I got a chance to watch the Copa Sudamericana run where those games were accessible, and Barco was on a tear, carrying Independiente to a title. And he was carrying them. He was their guy. He was the focal point. He was the talisman. Every cliche you want to come up with, he was that guy for that Independiente team. And it was so exciting to see a player like him for me. He's the kind of player that I just love to watch because it's a level of instinct, a level of creativity, just a player you can't replicate. He's not a robot. He's not a player like, from the box of guys that you mold and have them play a certain way. He's not that guy. He's special. And when he came here, we got to see glimpses of it in the first year. He was really important, as Mile High 17 says, off the bench late in 2018. He became very important in those moments. 2019, we got to see it start to emerge. Went to the U20 World Cup, was great. Got injured. We saw the injuries be an issue last year as well. I still, one of the great unknowns of Atlanta United history is what that front three of Pity Martinez, Ezequiel Barco, and Joseph Martinez could have been in 2020. PB and J forever, man. Now, that would have been incredible to see and call. We got a couple games of it in against Motagua, and it was percolating. It was really cool to watch what that group was doing. And then it didn't happen. And Pity, you have the pandemic, Joseph gets hurt, Pity gets sold. Barco had more injuries. Barco, after coming back from the Olympics, had the greatest couple of months outside of Joseph Martinez's goal scoring streak that any players had in an Atlanta shirt. And it's a shame that I don't think that will be remembered across the board. It should be, because he is scoring or assisting on pretty much everything that Atlanta did for the first part of Gonzalo Pineda's run here. Mm-hmm. He was involved in everything. It's a shame that MLS, for some reason, the discipline committee decided to target him and throw 2 fines at him for simulation, when you look at how often he was kicked, how much he was fouled, how strategic it was, how cynical it was at times, how many times he was hit off the ball, how many things weren't called. And some of the other players in the league that might have bigger profiles, one of them's playing in Serie A now and is a former Manchester United and Portuguese national team player who simulates things all the time. And other players do too, in far more cynical fashions than Ezequiel Barco and the two that he got fined for. But for whatever reason, he was targeted. And that was a real shame because I think it affected people's opinions of him. I think it affected him being up for awards that he should have been. He was, and SofaScore ratings are based on stats. It's a formula that they have. You can disagree. Everybody does on what you value more. He was rated the third best player in MLS last year.
Yeah.
He was an MVP candidate. And I loved his game. I loved his time here. It was such a pleasure to call his games. And when he was on, there hasn't been a player that Atlanta's had that has gotten more of those like whoo reactions out of me.
I agree.
In the run of play. There just hasn't been.
I agree.
Was just brilliant. And it's a great move for him. It's a good move for the club as well. You know, do you get your full return? Do you get the $30 million transfer that you hoped you would get in 2018 when you bought him? No, the market's changed. Everything's changed. Things have moved in different directions. But Barco's going to be in a good place at River. That's good for Atlanta United. He's going to go to a club in Europe, I think. He's going to play for the Argentine national team. These are all great things when you look back at it. And I just hope that his time, and I hope maybe this is a little bit of a lesson going forward, when these kinds of players come to Atlanta. And yeah, they're mercurial. They're gonna try things that your average player isn't gonna try. They're gonna fail sometimes. They're gonna make mistakes. They're gonna have runs of form where they're off. They're gonna put some balls into the stands when they shoot from distance. They're gonna, miss on a couple of gambettas and dribbles where they lose possession. But I hope that these guys get embraced more while they're here. And it's not looking back and saying, man, it was really good. I hope we get that love when they're here, because you're not going to find many players who put on the Atlanta kit ever again that are as talented and as special as Ezequiel Barco was. So it's sad because I love the guy's game. It's sad, but it's the right move for everybody.
Yeah, and that's so well said. And I just want to add on to that, I feel like the league in general sometimes misses the mark when it has the opportunity to promote more than just a few of its players. And, you used the word cynical and how cynical some of the fouling and the kicking of Barco was on the field. I thought a lot of the way that Barco was covered, even by some people who are employed by the league, was also very cynical and unfair. Because it was tied to his price tag.
Yeah.
When league employed analysts / hosts / journalists, whatever you want to call them, are tweeting during the MLS Cup final about Atlanta United's $16 million victory cigar, that's very cynical. That's very, very cynical for someone who I think blossomed into a player that elevated the caliber of this league. And this is something that we've got to do better on, not just with Atlanta United, but with everyone else who comes into the league. I would just like to see a little more of an open mind and open heart towards high caliber players who come into the league at high price tags, and not necessarily just instantaneously try to tear those players down because they aren't meeting a certain mythical standard. That's my much briefer and much less better put soapbox than you, Jason. I think Barco is going to turn out to be one of those players that, we'll look back one day and say, I think there were a lot of people who didn't realize how special he was when he was here.
When you've got outlets saying right now that Barco has to be the best reinforcement of the year in the Argentine league. Yeah, I mean, people are not looking at this in the way that I think people look at him here as, oh yeah, he's a good player on a good team. people are looking at this is what's going to put River over the top. Juan Fernando Quintero, great to get him back. That's great. He's a legend at the club. But man, it's going to be Barco that puts us over the top.
Mm-hmm.
That says a lot. That says
It
a lot.
does.
It's like I said, I'm happy for him because it's time. It's time for him to move on. This is a great spot for him to become better. It's time for the club, to change it up, bring in somebody new who might be that next guy who makes the big jump.
Right.
I think things just didn't work out in that pathway, John, like for this one, but it doesn't discredit any of his time here. And he's a player that, I can tell you that I will always be following where he's at, what he's doing, how he's playing, looking for the latest nutmegs, looking for the latest amazing plays out of him. He's a special one. He's a special player.
Yeah. And one of the things that I have come to appreciate over the last 5 years is artistry and coloring outside the box and imagination. And when you see all of these things come together, when you see players color outside the lines, is probably the best way that I can phrase it, is you see their imagination, you see their artistry, you see the moments that are attached to a player. We saw the artistry with Pitti. We're seeing it now with Luis Araujo. You've seen it with Ezequiel Barco, whether it's an absolute banger from 22 or 23 or just, charging from one end of the field to the other. I think that one of the things that I've grown to appreciate is thinking about the game in 3 dimensions, where it's not just going from one end of the pitch to the other and trying to accomplish something. It's the imagination that's attached, and having something like that in a player like Ezequiel Barco. And I'm going to be like you. I'm going to sit there and I'm going to track him down. And I would hope that a lot of fans would be the same way, where they sit there and there's the appreciation of him. Although you'd like for it, as you said, to be in a present tense and not just in a past tense of, wow, when we had Ezequiel Barco and he was healthy, A, B, C, D, and E. I'd like to see that appreciation in a present tense when players come here to Atlanta. That's a part of this too. But Ezequiel Barco will absolutely be missed, and his imagination and his artistry will be missed as well. But through the beauty of streaming services, we get to keep an eye on it now.
Yeah, I just was checking to see if there were any other quotes coming out of him in Buenos Aires this morning, and one River fan created a clip of, I think it's all stuff from last year. And good grief, the amount of nutmegs he had last year that this guy found on video, and the amount of just absurd dribbling moves, and the goal against Chicago off the deflected free kick and the free kick against DC. Good grief, that kid had an amazing year last year.
I think by a pretty wide margin, Ezequiel Barco is to be considered one of the 3 greatest attacking players in the history of Atlanta United, right?
Yeah, he should be. And that's what's interesting, is I wonder what his legacy will be, and it probably won't really come to fruition for a couple of years. But I wonder where people see him, because I've thought this about Pity Martinez too. Pity wasn't here quite as long, but both of them had just some incredible moments of talent on the ball, but also like big moments in games. I mean, it kind of gets washed away early in 2019 because it was a slow start, but the Barco header against Philadelphia,
big goal.
Yeah, it was a huge goal.
Yeah.
The Pitti goal against DC late on a header, his goal in the Open Cup final. Barco's work last year, especially the goal in Columbus off the back heel from Bello after the long dribbling run. Like, so many just huge plays for these guys in Atlanta United's history. Joseph gets to be Joseph a lot because of the work of your Barcos and your Pittis and feeding him and creating those opportunities for him and drawing defenders and opening up space.
Absolutely. Yep.
So it's, there'll be an official announcement here shortly. I don't know when shortly is. I don't know how that's going to get defined. You've got so many issues with these moves because it's not just the 2 clubs. You've got MLS contracts and rules and stipulations that you got to deal with for things to get ready to be announced. But Barco's done his medical at River. He's spoken to the media. This is all being reported worldwide. So Barco will be going to River. what that does for Atlanta United now is you've got a designated player spot that will be open because you're not doing this deal if you're not opening up that spot. That gets interesting. And talking about talented players who could be coming to town, we know there's that exclusive option on bringing Thiago Almada, who has similarities to Barco, but he's not a like-for-like player. He's definitely not. There's similarities, though. And Almada is another one of these just special, gifted players. And I think the hope for him is that he gets in, he gets settled, and he builds those connections that Barco had last year with the attackers around him. And when you can get potentially Almada, Luis Araújo, and Joseph Martinez on the same page and firing and reading each other's minds, whew, that's an attack. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I know it's not possible, but I'd like to get him in here like tomorrow, if possible.
I would too.
Just from a chemistry standpoint. Now, I mean, granted, Joseph's in Venezuela right now,
Right.
so I mean, tomorrow's an extreme, but I'd like to get him in here. Next week, as quickly as possible, because look, guys, as we've seen, it does take time to build that little society on the pitch that Jason talks about. Perhaps this is why they added that third friendly down in Mexico. I don't know if the timing would work out, or maybe he could get in there by then. But I get the feeling that with that additional friendly now, you've given yourself an extra opportunity to maybe flesh that out in a competition. There's only so much you can do on the training ground. Sometimes it just needs to come together in the form of a match. Now, then again, it didn't take Luis Araújo very long to assimilate and develop that chemistry. And Almada is a high caliber player that probably will not need an extreme amount of time, to kind of get comfortable and assimilate. But by the way, it's not just Almada, because you're going to have a U22 spot open. And if the Jurgen Damm reports are true, and I really don't know what to believe on the Jurgen Damm stuff, because there's a lot of credible reporting indicating that he could be outgoing. There's also, I think, a social media post of his saying that he wants to stay in Atlanta. So I don't exactly know what to believe there. But if he were to be moved along, now you've got some extra allocation money to play with as well. And this could get very, very interesting over the next few weeks beyond what we already know with Almada. So I'm very, very curious to see how much of what has been reported is true. But I'm looking at the clock here, and we're now inside of a month to the MLS opener. It was 1 month from yesterday. I'd like to kind of get this thing wrapped up, however it's going to be wrapped up, and really start building the connections that are going to be so important starting on February the 27th.
Yeah, the good thing is you've got the core back. So, whoever's coming in is fitting into something that is pretty well established. I think Gonzalo Pineda is probably the right kind of personality to help embed a new player and make them feel comfortable and make them feel part of the group. I think he's, what he said about Luis Araújo and his skill and having structure and players having responsibilities on the field, but also creating those spaces for them to be themselves and to express themselves. He's going to do that for any of these additions and find the way to make them feel comfortable as fast as possible. One thing, John, before you jump in, I feel like this has to be like a disclaimer every time we have this conversation. Of course, the team is, as they have said, doing all of their due diligence, and they're going to do everything proper to make sure that Thiago Almada is the right guy. Yeah. You're not going to make a deal if there are overhanging questions about it. This situation is something that has lingered for over a year in Argentina. Nothing has been charged yet. Understand that. I think maybe there's been one side reported and the thought that the team wouldn't be doing all of their homework here. No, if he's coming, they're going to feel comfortable with making the move and knowing everything that needs to be known about the situation. So I really hope that is understood. I don't know why it's not at this point. It has to be, because it's facts. It's just the fact here.
Along with the presumptions, I mean, I don't know how it works in Argentina, but along with the presumption of innocence until proven guilty, and I don't want to go too far into the weeds on his situation because my opinion doesn't matter on that. I'm just saying that Atlanta United is not going to bring anyone in until they are fully comfortable that the situation has been resolved. And by the way, it's not just Atlanta United; it's Soccer United Marketing. You're signing a deal with MLS. You aren't signing a deal with the individual club. Yep. And there are a lot of resources at the disposal of both the club and the league to ensure that if they're going to bring a player in, that all of these questions have been answered.
If it's the right move, it'll get done. If it's not, it won't.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's you have the National Football League and their security officials and all of that other just across the hall in the sense that you're all under the same umbrella for ownership.
Yeah. John, can I interject on that point too? Because I think that got misunderstood when Darren was talking about that, and that got picked apart unfairly because some people pointed out, well, the Falcons, that doesn't make me feel much better. I think a lot of people don't know that the people who work in NFL security are like ex-FBI people, like the creme de la creme of public sector policing go to work in the NFL in security. So I think that's what Darren was talking about. Like they have a lot of really, really high caliber people who can conduct these independent investigations and then put forth a recommendation. And by the way, this process is not over. The process is not over. No one is rushing into anything right now. If they were rushing into it or acting rashly without this being resolved, he'd be here by now. So I just think I'm not saying anyone deserves the benefit of the doubt here. I'm just saying that I really don't believe this club with its owner would ever bring in a player who would be guilty of what this particular player is accused of. I don't even know what he's been accused of.
He hasn't been charged.
He hasn't been charged.
The element here that has to be understood.
But this owner is not going to bring in a bad guy.
Yes.
Right. I think of all we know about Arthur Blank.
Right.
Does he ever come off as the type of owner who would take a personal risk at bringing in someone who did not meet the high standards of who he wants to work at his organization?
Nope. And I think that a lot of folks lose that too. It's like they're looking at it at just the face of the face value of all of this. But if for a second you thought that someone that is the gentleman that Arthur Blank is would have, if he had any questions whatsoever about a caliber of an individual being a part of his umbrella, that would be allowed in, that's mistaken.
Yeah. So anyhow, I mean, we'll see, because again, it's not resolved yet, and it might take time. But my overarching point is you're in some transition now. Barco's gone. Eric Lopez apparently is gone. Jürgen Damm might be gone. You're in a little period of transition right now. Time's wasting a little bit because your season opener is coming up pretty soon. I don't want to see Atlanta United not at its best on day one because players that they are targeting are coming in late. That's all. In
an ideal world, of course, that hopefully.
And sometimes you can't control it.
Yeah,
sometimes you can't.
Sadly. These windows and these transfers and when you're adding in, other elements to it, it can delay these moves. But I got faith in Gonzalo Pineda making whoever's coming in as comfortable as possible, as quickly as possible. And then go back to what Luis Araujo said, one of his first times speaking about coming to the team, he said that everybody in the team went out of their way to make him feel comfortable and at home. And that really helped him settle. So imagine that would be the same for anybody else coming in. Let's get into a little bit before we let you go, Mike, of Sunday, because it is a friendly 245s regulation kind of setup against Georgia Revolution. John and I had a chance to see the team against Georgia Storm. You didn't have a chance to see that, but we've talked about it a ton. What are you looking for on Sunday?
Well, I'm really excited to see some players that I haven't had an opportunity to really see closely, like Bryce Washington, Noah Cobb, Robbie Mertz. Really anxious to see him if he gets a chance to play. I think he will, based on what we've been told. Darwin Mateus, of course, my Penn Stater, Danny Bloyu, Tola Shawumi, Eric Centeno, the younger guys who are trying to compete for opportunities to play with the first team. I think we've seen in prior preseasons, these friendlies can be a real springboard. Mm-hmm. Tyler Wolff used that Birmingham friendly in 2020 as a real springboard, where by the time the MLS is back tournament came around,
Tyler out on this show.
Yeah, Tyler Wolff was on a first team contract. And that was a real springboard for him. Bradley Camden-Feo is someone who was with the first team in the 2020 training camp. Really used that as a springboard to get a little more heavily involved with the twos. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. And then, if the selection is similar to what it was on Tuesday, just, how does it look with Andrew Gutman? How does it look with Ozzie Alonso? I don't think these are guys who would play more than 45 minutes because
I don't think anybody's playing more than 45.
No, because from a competitive reason, I don't think there's really a point to doing that. But B, you're just trying to get as many people as much work as you possibly can. So those are the things I'm looking for. Like if Marcelino Moreno plays after getting stepped on and training a couple days ago, that would be great. But I know who he is.
Yeah.
I don't know really who Noah Cobb is yet in the context of how he plays with first teamers, or a Bryce Washington, or a Robbie Mertz, guys like that. That's what I'm looking for. And then on the Georgia Revolution side, I think we talked about this on Stoppage Time. It's so cool to me. Like I'm looking at the players on Georgia Revolution: Ackworth, McDonough, Stone Mountain, Warner Robins, Conyers, Lawrenceville, Lovejoy, Decatur, Sugar Hill, Warner Robins, Locust Grove. I don't know where Gillsville is. I guess that's Hall County.
I had to look for that one too.
Yeah. It's just so cool to see so many local kids who they're not kids anymore, but who played at a high level in high school soccer in Georgia. And many of them went on to college in the state of Georgia, like Georgia Gwinnett College or Clayton State or Mercer. I'm really glad that we're going to be able to shine a little bit of a spotlight on Georgia Revolution too, a team that's qualified for the U.S. Open Cup, made up of a lot of local players. That's going to be really, really fun to see. And I think they're going to come into Athens and give Atlanta United a really good workout in the same way that Georgia Storm did on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll have the stream for you, atlutd.com/live. We got special guests that are going to be hopping on the stream with us, which is very cool. Then afterwards, we'll be heading over to Authentic Brewing, and we've got another special guest coming over to hang out with us as well. Darren Eels hanging out at Authentic. He'll take some questions from you guys. He'll take some questions from us as well. It is a full day of soccer in Athens on Sunday.
Yeah, and we've got the U.S.-Canada match at the same time. We'll be at Authentic. And how are we feeling about that one with Alphonso Davies out?
It's possible to get 3 points. It's possible to get one. I think if you get anything out of it, I'm fine. I'm good.
I am too.
I'm not blowing a gasket if you don't. I think it puts a little more pressure on the next one, and it's a home game, which there should be that pressure, and you should win that last game of this window. But it's there for the taking. I mean, Canada's beatable in Hamilton. I think it's going to be a fight because of the conditions. It's going to be cold. It's on turf. I think we saw it a little bit last night, even though it wasn't quite as cold as we thought. Like, you just play in cold weather for a long period of time, and things aren't as smooth. The ball gets hard. It's just like your feet get cold. It's uncomfortable. So it'll be more of that on Sunday. So it's going to be down to individuals making plays for me. It's not going to be this, big tactical masterclass. I think it's going to come down to the top individuals, whether it's Jonathan David, Liam Frazier with that pass that we saw last night in Honduras, Weston McKennie, Christian Pulisic, It's going to be down to top guys making top plays is what I think it comes down to in those kind of conditions. And we'll see if the U.S. guys are up for it.
Yeah, and for those of you asking about the stream, it's on atlutd.com/live for the match.
Yep.
And someone was asking about a recording. Usually they put it up on YouTube, on their Atlanta United YouTube page when it's over. I don't know for sure if they're doing that in this case, but they usually do.
Yeah, preseason games are a little weird, so I don't know if they'll have the whole thing up like that. I'm not 100% sure.
I think the fact that they are playing it, like that, this is considered a home match for Atlanta United might help that, but I'm not positive. And as far as U.S. Canada is concerned, I thought, look, last night was a really good night in that you got 3 and Panama got 0. Panama is the team that has been scaring me right now in the Ocho. The fact that they got 0, I know that moves Costa Rica up a little bit higher, but I think you're looking really good right now. You controlled the match last night. It was not a fully first-choice group. You controlled the match and got a win on a night where Pulisic didn't give you a whole lot. That's a good thing. Keep it moving. And you're right, Jason. If you get a point out of Sunday, you're in great shape. If you get 3 points out of Sunday, you could have this done next week mathematically, which is pretty crazy to think about.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's possible you get 9 points out of this window, depending on the other results. You could be starting to look for training campsites.
Yep.
It could be to that point. Now, you're going to need other things to go your way. Control what you can. Go in and put in a good performance, and I think they are absolutely capable of winning on Sunday and then winning again next week. And this being a lot more comfortable than maybe we've all thought it would be. I hope so anyway.
Yeah, I hope so too. But really excited to see you guys this weekend, and really excited to see a lot of the 17s as well. This is going to be a really, really fun day, and the weather looks great. The weather's improving. Now it looks like mid-50s at least and sunny. So cold tomorrow, but everything for Sunday looks really good.
We'll take it. We'll see you in Athens on Sunday, Mike.
All right, guys. Take care.
Be good.
All right, we have this guy ready to come back into the mix.
This guy. Temperature update for Hamilton, by the way. High of 25, low of 10, and a 35% chance of precipitation of some degree.
Okay. That's not going to be pleasant in Hamilton. It's sometimes not pleasant when Jarrett Smith pops back in.
You know, it's funny. You talk about that temperature. I keep going back to there's a podcast that CC Sabathia does, and he had Mike Vick on and asked him about playing cold weather games. I think he said something along the lines of like, when it's between 10 and 20 degrees, that's when it's hell. North of 20 is a lot more tolerable. This is just something about it.
Yeah, I think one thing too that factors in, like if you're starting and you're playing and it's like that, you can deal. You're moving around. It's going to be okay. You might have the layers on underneath. I mean, you can do things to be all right. It's the guys coming off the bench, I think, which is really hard.
They're going to need extra warm-up time.
Yeah, it's tough. That's the hardest part, is affecting the game from the bench with your subs. Because, you have to change your whole preparation. Like, you might not be able to play quite as much because you're going to be going through a longer warm-up to get going.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I'm thinking depending on what you end up with subs, I mean, you're having the conversation of, hey, you're not going into the locker room at halftime. You're getting loose because we want to spend. You're going to spend those 15 minutes getting loose. Now, maybe you let them get loose inside, but you're spending that 15 minutes, getting loose and getting stretched out before the second half begins. Because I mean, even if you're not coming on right at the start of the second half, I want you, getting loose and trying to stay loose and just. So especially, God forbid, somebody gets injured for either team in the first half and someone has to get loose quickly, it's going to be tough.
Yep.
El Gráfico, which is one of the most historic sports outlets in Argentina, has a question up there asking people's opinions on the biggest the best reinforcement of 2022 in the Argentine game. And you've got Pulga Rodriguez going back to Colón. You've got Diego Valeri going to Lanús. You've got Centurion going to San Lorenzo. Edwin Cardona going to Racing. Dario Benedetto coming back to Boca from Marseille, and one Ezequiel Barco on that list. If you wonder about the differences in the way the game gets covered in different countries, and you see one country, he's a great player, it could be one of the best signings of the year, this is a really big deal, this could put River over the top, they're trying to win everything, and you have another country like, I don't know if he's really that good. Yeah, I just that's just very weird to me. But anyway, I'm done. One day he'll get his love. Hopefully, he'll get it in River. He'll get it from those fans. I think he'll come in and do really well. I think Gallardo will get the best out of Barco. It's really exciting to see. I'm pumped to see it. I'm not a River fan, but man, I'm gonna be watching a lot of River. I know Perfect Tommy will be watching a lot of River. Copa Libertadores with River will be a lot of fun this season, because they are trying to knock off the Brazilian clubs that have been dominating that tournament. It's just a fascinating project, because I think everybody goes into it with, Copa de la Liga, the league itself in the second half of the year. I think everybody right now is anointing River as the team that's going to win every trophy in Argentina. And we know how difficult that is. They're going to have Libertadores going on as well during the Copa de la Liga. It's tough to be that team with the bullseye on your back, but that's going to be River with all of these talented players. The Millonarios is going to, factor in, because that anger about, the rich team with all the talent, everybody's going to be kicking River all over the field as much as they can.
Yep.
It's going to be wild to watch.
And if they don't, oh boy.
Yeah.
Lit up.
The Daizes of the world going to have a field day of River.
It's going to be on a daily basis and a game by game basis. It's going to be constant conversation.
It's in this country. If you're looking for a comparison, it's like the Cowboys. It's like the Yankees. It's like Alabama football. It's going to be like a big deal, whether it's really good or whether it's not good. It's going to be a lot of content, a lot of column inches, a lot of minutes spent on shows being talked about, because it's one of the best rosters constructed in Argentina in a long, long time, because we've talked about how Argentina has been in the last couple of years with the league, because you've seen so much young talent leave and leave at even younger ages. So you've got a bit of a talent drain. You've got some inconsistencies in teams, because you get past that young talent coming through at teams. Then you might have some like 30 plus veterans who have come back from Europe, or some guys who have just been around for a long time in the local leagues. And you've got that like weird, but I think it's starting to grow a little bit now, that better middle class of guys in their 20s who are either just good players who haven't left Argentina, or some guys who've come back a little bit younger because of the market like weirdness right now. It's an interesting time, but River's stacked roster, it's hard to compare it to any team that the Argentine League has had in a long time. It's going to be a big storyline locally for them. It's going to be a big storyline across South America for them in CONMEBOL competition. It's going to be one to watch. It's going to be one of the stories of 2022 for sure.
It's kind of like there's no direct one-for-one comparison. Let's get that out of the way right now. But it's not dissimilar to, the first time you started seeing the big threes get put together in the NBA, like you had in Boston, or when you had the big three put together in Miami with LeBron and Ray Allen coming down. Well,
Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh,
Dwayne Wade, Ray Allen went down there. Sorry, I'm thinking of my head's still in Boston.
Okay.
Mostly because I don't like Boston in any sport. Enough. No offense, Boston.
Garnett Pierce,
actually, all the offense.
Boston,
yeah. Oh, Paul Pierce. But it's like when you're building the big three there, or when they say like, such and such, when the Dodgers, just keep adding free agent talent left and right. When they got like Mookie Betts from the Red Sox, because the Red Sox were trying to clear payroll, and it's going to be a lot of pressure, because it is going to be that trophies or bust mentality. And I thought Barco was under pressure here. I mean, he's not going to be the only guy there. He's not going to be the LeBron James of that. But there's going to be a lot of pressure on all of them.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be expected to win everything. And if they don't win every trophy, like, some will paint it as a failure. The biggest one's the Libertadores, and their games in the Libertadores will absolutely be must watch. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll get into some news from around the league and world here in just a second. 4:30 today, I'm going to be on the Fila Sports podcast, Forever I Love Atlanta, if you don't know the acronym. Research the Spike. I'm going to be on with Ariel and Tommy talking Atlanta United. I've tweeted the link out. Make sure you're following at Research Spike ATL for the links on that. But 4:30, I'll be talking Atlanta United with them. Also catching up a little bit later today, and we'll have the podcast up on the network this afternoon, talking to Jack Collison as Atlanta United 2 is getting ready to get underway with their own training sessions as they get ready for the season. Kickoff times have been announced for all of their games. That's on the website for Atlanta United 2 now. A lot of midweek games, but not as much overlap with first team games as there was last year. So that's a good thing for me. It's a good thing for making sure you keep up with the twos. And Jarrett Smith is going to be driving the twos review bus this season and making sure those get out on a regular basis.
Yeah, submit your apology ahead of time.
Yeah, apologies out now.
So yell at him about twos reviews, but we're going to do as many of those right after games from Kennesaw as we can, and the away games as well, as much as we can. And Jarrett's going to be in charge. So I'm afraid, but I'm also excited. But I'm mostly afraid.
Well, you should be afraid, but you should also be excited because it should be a really fun year. Yes. A lot of young players involved in that team. The ones that are coming back, who are not playing out of the academy, another year under Jack Collison, who's getting his first full season.
Yep.
As if you remember, he came in halfway through, a little under halfway through the first half of the season when Tony Annan left to go take over South Carolina's program. So, this is going to be the first real offseason that Jack Collison has had with them. And you saw some departures for some of the guys who were on the, the second team contracts. Both the Jopes are gone. You've seen now Chris Allen leave as well. Mojadama's gone. It's going to be different, and there are going to probably be some speed bumps with some of the younger players getting acclimated to the game. But as we've seen for the last few years, those players coming up through the academy, they're taking all those challenges and they're not scared. I think the level of, hey, they're just trying not to make mistakes has been replaced with they're going out there with the intention of impacting the game in a positive way, and they're not afraid to make mistakes and playing better for it.
Yeah, I think academy guys are going to get a lot of opportunities here. And Noah Cobb's one to watch. Yep. I think Brendan Lamb could be one to watch. Your guys are on two contracts that are new from the academy. Johnny Fortune, David Mejia. Those are going to be guys to watch. Vicente Reyes getting time in goal. Justin Garces getting time coming down from the first team. Yeah, a lot of Efrain Morales, his continued development. There's a lot of really good storylines with the twos. So we will have the twos review going all season long to dig into that. Let's get into some news from around the league and around the world as we wrap up on a Friday. Fiorentina. We talked about this on Soccer Over There extensively. And if you're wondering why, it's more than just a big transfer with Dusan Vlahovic going from Fiorentina to Juventus, 75 million euro. It's a big deal. You have a lot of history and bad blood between those two clubs because of moves that have happened in the past. Well, there is a trickle down to MLS in this potentially, according to reports. TNT Sports Brazil has said that Fiorentina might be looking for Tati Castellanos to join them. They have made a couple of signings with that huge outlay of money that Juventus has given them for Vlahovic, but they need another striker. And according to TNT Sports Brazil, Fiorentina has started to negotiate with NYCFC for Tati Castellanos. Not going to accept a deal less than 15 million is what's being reported. That's been pretty consistent most of the offseason. NYC is not really resigned to just letting him go yet. They want to make sure an offer is good. We've heard about River potentially in for Tati Castellanos, but they've kept Julian Alvarez, so maybe that's not an immediate need. We've heard about Palmeiras, but Jarrett, your boy Castellanos could be headed to Serie A in Fiorentina. That's a huge deal.
I'm having my emotions toyed with on a daily basis with this, and I'm really running out of energy to deal with it. Because at first I was afraid that River was going to make me try and love them by bringing in Tati in the summer. But now you got this rumor going around. Him in Serie A would be a lot of fun. Him anywhere is going to be a lot of fun. Just all I really want is for him to continue his ever-long quest to lead the league in both yellow cards and goals scored.
Goals
Throwing
scored and fouls
there.
committed. That's what I want.
Yeah.
There you go.
I mean, Tati is a blessing. God bless him. And I hope New York City sees a really nice chunk of change for it. He's done really well for them. Yeah, Abear having scoring, I believe, a hat trick in his first preseason game is just
got two
in the first 30 minutes. That's still pretty good.
Yeah, 2 in 30 minutes is such a good sign for them because let's remember they won MLS Cup last year without Abear giving them anything. Like, remember, Abear plays in a couple of those games, including the game in Philadelphia. Abear's a traffic cone at that point.
Yeah.
You know, his body just wasn't ready. He wasn't able to contribute. What he had shown you in 2021 and in 2020 is a very talented player.
Yep.
And man, I'm very interested to see, or
19.
Yeah, 2020, 2019, whatever. Time's irrelevant.
Yeah,
Abear's a very talented player, and if he is able to give them productivity in that striker spot, woe be unto everyone, mostly you, Philadelphia and Red Bulls.
If he gets back to a good form and you get the bump in form from Santiago Rodriguez and Thales Magno in their second year in the league, NYC, even if they lose Castellanos, will still be a problem in the Eastern Conference. Michelle Kaufman in Miami sharing a report out of Finland that Finnish national team winger Robert Taylor, who plays in Norway for Brann, is in talks with Inter Miami about a possible transfer. I didn't have Finland on the bingo card this morning, but okay. We'll see. Miami's getting younger. Their teenagers showed out against Universitario in a friendly this week. They're going to have to play some of these guys, and I think they're looking at this as a 2-year rebuild. I think, honestly, like, they're not trying to rush it for this year. I think they're getting guys that they want to see grow and get better. And I think they're going to hand the keys to Phil Neville to develop them. It's an interesting project. I'm going to be paying attention to this outside of just what they do in the Eastern Conference. I'm intrigued by what they're doing. And Chris Henderson has a good eye for talent. He's been one of the best in the league at it. So, I think there should be a level of trust there that he's going to get it right. I think it's just going to take 24 months. That's okay.
Yeah. I think that this first year, as we've seen with what Chris Henderson has done here in the offseason, is clearing the decks, making sure that you can try to be as financially manageable as possible.
Yeah, but John, I don't think it's that simple. I don't even want to term it that anymore, because I don't think it's just clearing the decks and they just throw guys in uniforms and they play this year. I don't think it's that. Like, we see that in the NBA sometimes where you're clearing cap space for a run at a free agent the next year. So, I mean, call it tanking if you want, but you're clearing the decks without the intention or a plan. You can't do that in this sport anyway. It's just, it doesn't lend itself to it. But I don't even think it's just clearing the decks. I think they have been strategic about moving guys out that were on large salaries, that had value, and bringing guys in that aren't just filling up the numbers. I think are there to play well and to grow into players. I think, some of these guys that they've brought in are expected to perform. They're not just putting on the shirt because somebody has to.
No, and I think that the Lewis Morgan deal, I think, was one of the first signs of that, where you could sit there and you could sit there and take your dead weight and just blow it out and then be stuck with whatever and just try to fill in pieces or whatever. But I think that what the Morgan deal did was try to assist your situation, knowing that you were going to be penalized allocation money. You triggered a deal to help, reinforce what you could do and try to bring folks in. If you didn't do a deal like that, then I would sit there and say, yeah, you're just getting rid of dead weight and you're tanking. But having the impetus to do a deal where you're bringing in allocation money and looking after younger talent, I think that's where this is twofold. It's not just sitting there and blowing things out just so you can tank. That wasn't what I was implying, was that they were tanking. I just think that it's a two-step build. It's where you're trying to purge the dead weight to get you in a position where you can start your process forward, and it's not going to happen in this first year with the young talent.
No. The process has started. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's the difference. It's not that the process of rebuilding hasn't started. Like, they've cleared players off the roster, but they're adding pieces that, again, aren't just taking up space, are part of the process. You've got Ian Frey, who's a homegrown that they're expecting things from. You got Phil Neville's son who they're expecting things from, was in Manchester United's academy. They've signed young players coming in from South America that they expect are going to be here for a minute. So he's accelerated it. I think when we went into the offseason, that probably was the narrative of they're going to have to clear the decks, open up cap space. It's going to take a long time. They're not going to be worth anything. Nah, I think Chris Henderson blew past that part of the narrative. I think Chris Henderson is at a point now where he's putting together a lot of young, interesting players that have expectations, not just to be here for a year and then they'll replace him next year. I think it's past that. And it's a credit to Henderson. I think he jumped ahead a few chapters. So that's not easy to do. When we see teams that have to rebuild, sometimes it does take multiple years just to get to the part where you can add the guys you want. I think Henderson has skipped ahead and he's got some guys that he wants for the long haul. And he's still been able to clear this stuff out in one window. They're not finished. The summer window is an opportunity to add. Next year is going to be an opportunity to add. Then they get those penalties wiped away and they'll be in a really good position, but with a core to build from. That's the key, is not just wasting time on this. And I think Henderson has kind of jumped ahead of that, which is, again, it's a credit to him, because it's maybe the hardest thing to do is to do a rebuild, but also be potentially competitive and have a long-term vision all at the same time with some of the additions. Feels like Henderson is getting there. USL Championship news: Des Moines, Iowa is going to be part of the USL Championship in 2024. This is the USL League 2 team, or the same group, coming out of the Des Moines Menace, which launched in 98. It's Kyle Kraus, who's also the owner of Parma in Serie B. They are coming into USL Championship, and they're coming in with I think, a platform to be successful, John. And this isn't a brand new team coming out of thin air. This is a group that has had a lot of success in American soccer over the decades.
I want to say you're pushing 25 years of development with the Menace and everything that they've done there in that footprint. So all of the development that they've had over the 2+ decades, that's a part of this foundation. And then they decided, Kraus decides, okay, we want to take that next step and have a facility and have the new stadium and all this kind of stuff in Des Moines. And if you looked at the crowds that were in the Menace's playoff run, I want to say it was last year, the places were filled. I mean, it was a stacked crowd watching the Menace chasing after a championship. So you've got the fan base that's there, you've got the following that's there, and you have all of the tentacles in bringing in all the young talent, and all the development is there. So that ladder is there, and it's been there for a while. Now they're just taking that next step. And I'm intrigued. I want to see what it looks like when you add Iowa to USL Championship. I think it's going to be a fun one.
Jarrett, in AFCON this weekend, quarterfinals, Cameroon taking on Giant Killers Gambia. Gambia reported that all of their COVID tests came back negative, so they're good. They're not going to be missing anybody for this. Been a little bit of speculation about guys getting maybe some positive tests going into matches with Cameroon, the hosts. Just saying, black helicopters have been circling, according to some reports. Burkina Faso and Tunisia in the second game on Saturday. Egypt, Morocco, and Senegal and Equatorial Guinea. The game that I think most people are probably looking forward to is Egypt and Morocco. I think the two highest ranked teams. But we've seen some wild things in AFCON. You still have some potential upset specials in this tournament at the quarterfinal stage.
You do. It could get really weird. It could get really tense. You could get some very chaotic games that make CONMEBOL look like a walk in the park. Who knows? Could have somebody sent off in the 6th minute again.
Sure.
Man, there's also we're going to touch on this real quick, and we're going to move on. Y'all can take this out in the Discord. I don't care. There's also the fact that Burkina Faso's got some stuff going on back home. If y'all haven't seen, Burkina Faso's in a really weird spot. I'm genuinely curious where their heads are going, what their headspace is going to be like for that game, because it would be really, I can't imagine what that would be like trying to play in a tournament with all the domestic issues they've got back home.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a subplot to that match. One other thing about AFCON, and we've talked about the tournament going on, the CAF World Cup qualifying final round. Remember the way they do it, they had 10 groups that played, and the group winners were the only ones who went into the final round, and it's straight up playoffs. Winners go to the World Cup, losers stay home. Those matchups were drawn this week. Egypt and Senegal is one, so one of them is not going to the World Cup. Cameroon and Algeria, that's two other strong teams. One of them's not going. Ghana and Nigeria. DR Congo and Morocco. Morocco's a decent favorite there. And Mali and Tunisia is the fifth matchup. Ghana have already fired their coach after their shockingly bad performance in AFCON. They got to find a new coach ahead of those playoffs, which are going to be in the March international window. They lost 3-2 to Comoros. That put them bottom of their group, and they were one of the favorites coming in. They finished bottom of their opening round group. So, yeah. He's out. They got to hire somebody. Nigeria had an interim coach in this tournament. They didn't look great. Cameroon hasn't looked great in this tournament either. I mean, you've got some big teams. One's already made a big change. A couple other maybe shaky coaching jobs going into those games that are, March 24th is the first round, it looks like, or at least that's the first day it could be. I don't think they've finalized those games between the 24th, 25th, and 26th, and then a few days later, the second leg. 2 legs, home and away. You're going to have some upheaval in those games. And those are, again, straight up playoff games. Winners go, losers stay home. Out of Asia yesterday, Iran became the first country to clinch their spot. They beat Iraq 1-0. South Korea won 1-0 against Lebanon. They'll qualify if they beat Syria on Tuesday, so they'll book their spot. Saudi Arabia and Japan are all in good shape to get to the going to the World Cup, not going to the playoff. Australia needs some help to jump one of them. If not, Australia goes into the playoff that they'll be favored to win against third place of the other group. There's a big gap there. But remember the interconfederational playoffs. This is a key element here. It's one game now. It's not a home and away. It's a one game that'll take place in June in Qatar. And CONCACAF's fourth place team will play Oceania's winner, which is probably going to be New Zealand. That's manageable for whoever finishes fourth out of CONCACAF. That's a toss-up. CONMEBOL's fifth place team plays the Asian playoff winner who goes there, because the third place teams from this final round of group qualifying in Asia, they have a playoff in March. Then the winner goes to play the CONMEBOL fifth place team. It could be a situation where it's Australia versus a Colombia or an Uruguay for a World Cup spot in a one-game playoff in Qatar this summer. Good grief.
Oh, man.
Australia started slow, and they got behind Saudi Arabia and Japan in that group. Japan bounced back after losing game 1. Australia's had some draws. They're right now looking at having to go through a playoff in Asia and then a one-game playoff against the South American team to book their spot. No part of that game. No.
Good luck.
Brutal. Couple of transfer things to keep an eye on this weekend. Luis Diaz from Porto. Liverpool have jumped into the fray. They've got people in Argentina to meet the Colombian team who's playing in Argentina in World Cup qualifying after the window closes. So they got to get a medical done. So Liverpool has dispatched people to Argentina to meet Diaz and meet the Colombian team to get this done. It's not easy, but they've got time. They've got the time to do it. Looks like about 60 million euro to get the deal done. Tottenham had been linked with him, but looks like he's choosing Liverpool instead. Barcelona have made contact with Dortmund about Thomas Meunier, 30 years old. They're trying to bring him in. Barcelona is trying to get at least, I think, 2 deals done before the window closes, but they've got to get something on Dembele. They've got to get a new deal with him, a new contract that will give them more room in La Liga's spending limits to work with, or they've got to move him out. And they've put it to him, and Xavi has been very clear, you're going or you're not playing. You're not going to get picked. You're going to sit in the stands or at home or have stomach problems. I don't care. He didn't want to go and get not picked one day, so he said he had stomach problems, and he showed up the next day for training. He's not going to play, but they're having a staring contest about this. And Barcelona's trapped with it because they have had a bunch of horrible deals. They've done this to themselves, but they're trapped at this stage because Dembele doesn't want to go. He doesn't want to sign a new deal. He's kind of holding them here up from adding Alvaro Morata, who's been talked about, or potentially somebody like Meunier. Now, they do have, according to all the reports out of Barcelona, they are going to be able to register Adama Traore, who was there for a medical this morning. He's going to come in on loan. He's basically going to be completely free to them. There's a purchase option at the end of it, but his salary is going to be picked up on the other side. So they're going to be able to register him. Now, registering him for La Liga is different than registering him for UEFA play. Remember, they're in the Europa League now, and they might have to win the Europa League to get into the Champions League next year. So the Europa League is important. You can add 3 changes to your UEFA roster. So right now, they can add Adama Traore, they can add Dani Alves, they can add Ferran Torres. Well, if they go out and sign other people, then they can only add 3 of the additions. So that's going to be tricky, and they don't know who those are going to be. You have to make that change by February 2nd. So they get through the window. Then they're only going to be able to add 3 guys to their Europa League roster out of whoever they're able to add. Right now they got 3. They're trying to get a couple more. Who knows with Dembele? Barcelona lives for the chaos. And, oh, yeah, by the way, it looks like their previous board, led by Bartomeu, is going to be charged with financial improprieties. The courts are involved now.
Imagine that.
I know, it's crazy. Bartomeu could be in some big trouble along with his board, former board, what have you. It's going to get weird. Like it wasn't already weird. Franck Kessié, likely going to snub a free transfer to Tottenham Hotspur. Stop me if you've heard this before. He's on a free in the summer. Looks like he's not going to take that. He wants to stay in Serie A and go to either Inter or Juventus, leaving Milan. That could get a little awkward. According to La Gazzetta dello Sport, Inter have already talked to his people. Juventus is going to push for him. We shall see. One of the big stories this morning is Aubameyang at Arsenal. Now Barcelona have jumped into that because they want a forward. They might not be able to get Morata, who they had wanted. Then Juventus didn't want to give him up. Now Juventus has got Vlahovic coming in, so they could care less about Morata. But ATLUTD is where Morata is under contract to. He was loaned to Juve. ATLUTD doesn't really want to help Barcelona out. So Barcelona, if they can get the stuff with Dembele sorted out, they want to look at bringing in Aubameyang on loan because Arsenal doesn't want him. But now Juve wants to get him potentially to be the backup, and then Morata would be available. And then it's musical chairs. Like it's literally musical chairs, and Morata and Aubameyang and Barcelona and Juventus and ATLUTD are just running in circles. That's what's happening.
And El Chiringuito is must-see television.
Oh, for sure. I mean, well, not so much about that one. They're more about the Dembele part of it, where they're trying to do ISOs on phones to see,
they succeeded.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah, they're doing ISOs on phones to see who's talking to who. Mbappe's involved. I mean, El Chiringuito is just loving everything right now. One last one on U.S. men's national team transfers too, because Berhalter broke some news last night about Arsenal and Matt Turner, although it had been reported. He's going to do a deal with Arsenal. He's going to be with the Revs through the first half of the year, it looks like. But Brendan Aronson has come up. Phil Hay over in England says that Leeds is not going to make a third offer for Brendan Aronson. They're going to wait for the summer. Salzburg doesn't want to sell Aronson in this window. There's a question they might need a replacement for Somerville if he leaves and if he asks to leave and he does leave before the window's over, then Leeds might have to go find somebody short notice on a central midfielder. And I guess that's where they see Aronson, or at least where Phil Hay thinks they see Aronson. But it looks like they're not going to throw another $25 or $30 million offer at Salzburg to get Aronson now. They're going to wait till the summer and try to get that deal done. But Leeds really wants to get Brendan Aronson. Looks like it's just going to take a little bit of extra time. Final thoughts from you, Jarrett Smith, for the week.
Keep an eye on AFCON, as we talked about. Be nice to each other as we go through another round of CONCACAF CONCACAF World Cup qualifying. God, I wish Champions League was here. That's much more fun and much less stressful on social media.
It's only
be nice
a couple
to each
of
other.
weeks, Jarrett.
I know.
CONCACAF
Be nice
Champions
to
League's
each other
coming.
about Yeah, man. Tati Castellanos in Champions League. If he's still here,
Yeah.
that would be amazing. Like, y'all want to see an Argentine man get booed inside of a Mexican stadium? That would happen.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, like that's not anything new.
But if he's here, and NYC goes on the road to Mexico, and Tati has like 2 goals and 6 fouls committed, and is over there badgering an opposing manager, that's the good stuff. That's the stuff I want to put directly in my veins. But yes, this should be a fun week. Be nice to each other about this, and have fun with the USA Canada.
Good luck on the being nice to each other thing.
Hey, you know what? I don't care if it falls on deaf ears. At least I will go to sleep knowing that at least I tried.
Yeah.
Go through the act of hoping that'll happen, right?
Yeah. I'm sure USMNT Twitter, which I was not watching last night, was all aflutter about anything and everything that happened when the lineups came out, to probably anything that Berhalter had to say afterwards. So a good 4 hours of just nonstop yelling and chaos.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to avoid that on match days from now on. John, final thoughts from you for the week?
Looking forward to Athens this weekend. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a full day. Looking forward to seeing the Revs. Looking forward to seeing Atlanta United continue their way working forward before they head to Mexico for a week. And looking forward to Authentic and hanging out with everybody that's going to be in Athens this weekend. It's going to be a fun time for an all-day experience on Sunday.
Yeah. To remind everybody of everything going on Sunday, because it is hectic. Games at noon at the Turner Soccer Complex. Tickets are sold out. This thing didn't last very long in terms of getting in the door. So if you don't have a ticket, you can watch on the stream, atlutd.com/live. Game's going to kick off at noon. We'll be on a little bit before that. Mike and I are calling the game. We will have special guests in the booth throughout the match. That's going to be a lot of fun, a little bit different kind of a broadcast here. We'll be heading to Authentic afterwards. Our show there is set to start at 3 o'clock. 3 to 5 is what we're shooting for. We'll have Darren Eels pretty early in the show. We're going to try to get some questions from you guys. We're going to get some questions from myself and Mike, who's going to join us as well for the special SDH episode, and John. There will be a food truck there at Authentic. Horny's Food Truck. Tacos. Good. Yes. I need tacos after this game. Great beer at Authentic too. It's one of my favorite places in the area. We were there last year and really, really liked our stop. It's a great setup. You'll be able to hear the show whether you're inside or outside. We'll be inside doing the show. Great sound setup. Really cool spot. The US-Canada game will be on TVs as well. It's on Paramount Plus if you're watching that from home, or you want to have it right in front of you at the table at Authentic, because you can do that too. So that is Sunday. It will be a full day of soccer from Athens, Georgia Revolution, and Atlanta United. Make sure you're keeping up with your social media accounts on potential news. We talked about it a lot this morning. Ezequiel Barco has been at Rivers offices, spoke to the media about the move. He is headed there on a 2-year loan, according to all of the reports. All the paperwork, I guess, is done from the MLS side now. That was what allowed him to go into the offices and get the medical done to join River. So announcements, I guess it's safe to say, are probably imminent about the official announcements here. But Barco has spoken to Argentine media, and maybe we'll speak more. I don't know. Those clips are out there if you want to watch them, and a lot of people have posted quotes, and translations are available as well. So could be a big weekend for news as well as a match. I think we'll learn a lot about Atlanta United from this one. We'll learn a lot about Georgia Revolution too, as they get ready for the Open Cup first round in March. All the things this weekend, along with World Cup qualifying, that's always quiet. There's really no chaos that happens in CONCACAF World Cup qualifying. Sure. That's never anything to worry about.
Nope.
Oh, boy. Just get ready. We'll be back on Monday to recap all of the ridiculousness from Saturday and Sunday and the rest of today. So enjoy your weekend. Hopefully we'll see some of you in Athens on Sunday. And until then, much plot to y'all.
Much plot to y'all.
Much plot to y'all.